Hey, welcome back. Great to see you all again. One more episode of this beautiful adventure. Today I'm here in Point Vincent in Rancho Palos Verdes, Los Angeles County, and I'm going to photograph what you can see behind me, the lighthouse. It's gonna be my main subject. Today's video is going to be about composition and how do I approach the scene in a situation like this one where I cannot get really close to the subject and I have a fence that I cannot go over. There's a big cliff. So how do I approach the composition like that? How to approach a scene like that without the normal point of interest or rules, if you want to call it, like leading lines or a foreground that lead to the background, like rocks and leading lines of water. So I'm gonna show you how I approach a scene in a situation like this with the device that I mean it's an old-fashioned way, but it's very useful. It comes in handy for situations like this. So I'll show you a different type of things that I do. It's a really hot day today here in California. It's 90 something degrees. It's very hard to photograph something on this heat. I haven't been able to go and travel because the heat. There's no clouds on the sky. It's super hard light. It's not gonna be any cloud whatsoever, but we're gonna work with what we have. So, and we're gonna go home with a nice composition. At the end of this video, you'll be able to see the image that I capture and different composition that I will get. Hopefully by sunset, probably we get a little pinkish light behind the lighthouse, but who knows. When in a situation like this, when it's super really harsh light, I try to shoot for sunset, like the last 30 minutes of the sunset. So that's why I come in with a lot of time, so I can scout the area, try out my device, find for different composition and check different focal lengths that I'm gonna use and different techniques that I'm gonna use. For sure we're gonna need a Polaroid filter and some soft ND filters because it's so bright. The lighthouse is white, so to kill that contrast. What I like from that, and if you can see that cliff, the soil is super orangey. So I'm guessing when the sun goes down a little bit more and it start giving those golden hours, that's gonna glow like for sure. So, all right, I'm gonna walk around and show you my little device that I use for this type of scene. It's hot. Okay, I have my tripod set up for my first photo, but let's talk about a little bit the composition thing. Like we all know, like composition means like an arrangement of elements to tell a story. In the artistic way, again, like when you write a song, you have to put a bunch of elements together to tell the story. Same thing in photography. With the different elements, they arrange it in a proper way, you can tell a story about the image that you were captured. It can make meaningful, it can make powerful, and also if your components are not exactly well composed, your image may be boring, or I don't know, not boring, but it will be lacking of effort, in my opinion. So that's why this is a very old device the painter used to use, and all photographers, really old-fashioned, used to use. It's a piece of cardboard cut at like a 4:5 ratio. And what I do when I come in with time, I just look through this in a different, distance from my eyes and look for composition. You know, sometimes when I'm driving with all my gear, it's very heavy, and I make multiple stops, so I don't want to come out with my gear, get my camera, go, back and forth to the car. So that's why I have this little piece of cardboard. So if I see something interesting, I stop, get out of my car, take the piece of cardboard, super lightweight, and I go and I check for different composition. I already did this earlier here, and I have different compositions, some closer, like with the telephoto zoom, some ones are wide angles, different type. So in a scene like this, when I cannot walk really close to my subject, so this come in handy, because I'm limited for where I'm going to be placing my camera, my tripod, so I'm limited. So I have to come up with creativity, and so this is my way to show my creativity. So if I look through that, on the, I'll show you in a moment, but if I look through here, so I have a picture here, I have another picture like that, so it's a different way to compose. So I'll show you through this piece of cardboard how I see it, and that's the way they approach the scene in these type of situations. Of course, it's easier when you go in this perfect place, when you have these curved rivers or leading rock and mountains or valleys. It's easier to find a composition there. But when you are limited and by this fence, this is it come in handy. So I'll show you how I use it. Okay, let's say for example, like the reason why I have this is because I scout the area before, and I have the tripod on the other side of the fence. It's really hard to go onto the viewfinder, live view, camera mode, whatever. So what I did this is, like, for example, see, I have a composition right there. I also can have another composition there. Then if I back up, there's another possible composition right there, and another possible composition right there. So that's the way I do it. And that's another way to approach your scene. This doesn't cost much. We all have a cardboard from Amazon or from whatever in our houses. So just grab one, cut a ratio, 2x3, 4x5, however you prefer, and go out there and try it out. I guarantee that your perspective will start changing. That you'll see compositions where you thought there weren't any composition. Also, when you do these type of things, you have to think about the composition inside the composition. What that means is sometimes we have the big panorama vista, but also there's other little compositions. That's why it's also good in landscape photography. Use zoom lenses. It's not only wide angle lenses or 24 to 70 millimeters. Sometimes the 200 millimeter, 300 millimeter, 400 millimeter, it can get you to those inaccessible composition. For example, if you're hiking in a big, Yosemite National Park, you hiking and you cannot get to the other side of the valley, but there is always a composition in between the composition. Let's say if you're following the light and you have this tree in the valley, they're being lit up by this little ray of light. So if you put a 24 millimeter, you will capture the whole scene, and it will be nothing. It won't be meaningful. But if you go and you zoom in all the way, maybe isolate everything, just probably those three and those light, you can create the depth and dimension, and so that's what I think is a composition. Always is a composition inside a composition. So I'm gonna take a few shots and then wait until sunset, and then at the end of the video I will post all the images that I get today, and I hope you get a sense of a different way to approach a scene with this really easy technique and tip if you want it. Right, so I'm gonna start shooting and you will start seeing images, and then we'll come back to say goodbye. Okay, I'm all packed, and while I was packing, I thought, why would I make this video a little bit more interesting? And what if I'll take you guys to my studio / magic room where I edit the picture. Let's edit one of the images and let's make a print and see the real purpose of photography, making prints. Because you don't want to go out there, spend all this time, all the knowledge, all this classes that you pay, everything, all this expensive gear that you have to keep all the images in Instagram or in a hard drive. You need to print your images, you know. That's the beauty of photography. Print your work. So let's go back to my studio.